This NBA season has been unlike any other in history. From starting the season in empty arenas, to finishing it with the few thousand fans allowed in each arena, the regular season had an unusual ebb and flow to it. Nonetheless, we carried on past tough times and made it through 72 games, as well as a brand new play-in tournament, to get to my favorite time of the year, the NBA playoffs. Although things are slightly different than normal, it should still be an enthralling 2 months of guts, sweat, and tears, and only one team will make it to the mountaintop unscathed. Will it be the most unlikely of repeats for the 7-seed Los Angeles Lakers? Or will the Brooklyn Nets shake off the cobwebs and power through everyone? Will the process in Philly finally be completed, or will a first-time champion rise from the ashes? There are so many interesting plot points to watch out for in the coming weeks. That being said, let's take a look at the 7 most intriguing storylines for the 2021 NBA playoffs. Is the road to repeat too hard for the Lakers? After conquering the bubble last year, the Los Angeles Lakers headed into the season with dreams of repeating as champions. Things started off pretty well for LA, as they were one of the top teams in the West and LeBron was playing his usual brand of MVP basketball. However, injuries began to pile up for both James and Anthony Davis, and the Lakers stumbled all the way down to the 7th seed. Although they beat the Warriors in the play-in game, LA is now faced with the task of beating the potent Phoenix Suns in the first round. If they make it past the Suns, they would face either the Nuggets or Blazers in the second round, then potentially the Jazz or Clippers in the conference finals, before playing the winner of the Eastern Conference, all without home court advantage in any round. So is the road back to the NBA Finals too hard for the defending champs? I mean, it's definitely going to be much harder for them to win this year, and it may just be the hardest road for any reigning champ in NBA history. If I had to guess what happens, I wouldn't choose the Lakers to repeat this year. Without home court in any round, it would be a monumental task to ask a team who hasn't played all that much together during the regular season and make it back to the NBA Finals. Yet, as I say this, it always seems like a bad idea to bet against King James. Just when you think the obstacles are too insurmountable, he always finds a way around them. It's what makes LeBron such an amazing player, and is the only reason why I wouldn't be shocked if they somehow repeated as champions. If the Lakers were able to go back-to-back, facing this gauntlet of a schedule, then it would be one of the greatest achievements of LeBron James' career, and it would further cement his case for being the GOAT. Can the Nets overcome their lack of playing time together? Once James Harden was traded to the Nets without losing KD or Kyrie, Brooklyn immediately vaulted themselves into a championship or bust team. They have 2 former MVPs and 3 superstar-level players all in their prime. All 3 of them can get buckets from anywhere on the court, and they are all elite offensive minds. So what can possibly stop the newest Big 3 from sweeping through the postseason and winning it all? The best bet would probably be themselves. Astonishingly, KD, Kyrie, and Harden have only played 8 games together all season. This lack of playing time together may end up affecting their on-court chemistry during the most crucial time of the season. Furthermore, the Nets rank 22nd in defensive rating, which is way below the standard set by almost every champion in NBA history. The saying goes, defense wins championships, and if we're going by that mantra, then Brooklyn probably won't end up winning the title. However, there are examples of average defenses winning it all, such as the 2016 Cavs, who also ranked 22nd in defensive rating with a score of 110.4, a little bit higher than the Nets score of 113.1 this year. The blueprint for the Nets will be that Cavs team, which had one of the best offenses of all time. This Brooklyn team, though, when healthy, has an even better offense, and they will need to rely on outscoring their opponents to make up for their subpar defensive rating. So can the Big 3 overcome their lack of cohesion on the offensive and defensive ends? It will be a fascinating storyline to follow for one of the championship favorites. Will Giannis conquer his playoff demons? So far in Giannis Antetokounmpo's young NBA career, he has reached heights only few other players have before. Already a 2-time MVP, Defensive Player of the Year, and 4-time All-NBA member, the 26-year-old has a resume more loaded than some Hall of Famers. The one thing missing from his resume are playoff accolades. After making a run to the Eastern Conference Finals in 2019 and being 2 wins away from reaching the finals, the Bucks lost 4 straight games to the Raptors. They then followed that up with a second-round loss to the Heat in 5 games in the bubble last year. For as good as a player as Giannis is, he does have a few shortcomings that can be exposed in the playoffs. For instance, his lack of a reliable jumper gives his opponents the freedom to sag off of him and build a wall in the paint. the way the Raptors and Heat both beat the Bucks the past 2 seasons was by taking the ball out of Giannis' hands and making his teammates make the big shots. This year, the Bucks have a first-round rematch with the Heat, but this time around, Giannis has a new weapon to rely on in Jrue Holiday. The two-way superstar may well end up being the X-factor the Bucks have needed the past 2 seasons to get over the hump and make the finals. With Giannis commanding the majority of the attention, it's up to Holiday and Chris Middleton to be consistently great during the playoffs for Giannis to conquer his playoff demons. If Jrue can thrive in some of the playmaking capabilities, and Giannis can take another leap in playoff scoring, then I can see the Bucks finally making it out of the East. Are the Jazz made for a deep playoff run? The Jazz have heard it all before. Yeah, you're a good regular season team, but can you translate it to the playoffs? In the past, Utah has always been excellent in the regular season, amounting somewhere between 45 and 50 wins each year, but struggled to beat the elite teams in the playoffs when it matters most. Well, if this season is the year that they buck that trend, then we'll know exactly why. The Jazz are the most complete team in the NBA. They have a top 5 defense and offense, which is usually a recipe for winning in the playoffs. They have the likely defensive player of the year in Rudy Gobert, a lethal scoring threat in Donovan Mitchell, 2 Sixth Man of the Year candidates in Jordan Clarkson and Joe Ingles, and a Coach of the Year candidate in Quinn Snyder. In other words, there should be no reason that Utah can't make the finals this year. With the best record in the West, they'll also have home court advantage throughout the first 3 rounds. Utah has all the weapons to make a deep run, with elite 3-point shooting, a top-tier defense anchored by Rudy Gobert, and considerable depth in their lineups. The Jazz haven't made the finals since going back-to-back times in 1997 and 1998, and this team may be even better than those teams. It would be a tremendous achievement for the organization to make a deep playoff run into the NBA Finals. But if they don't, many questions will be asked if this Jazz team will ever overcome being typecast as an elite regular season team only. Will the process be completed for Embiid and the Sixers? Don't look now, but the Sixers have the best record in the league, meaning the road to the finals would run through Philadelphia if they made it there. That's pretty crazy to think about considering where this franchise was 5 years ago. Nowadays, they have an MVP candidate in Joel Embiid, a Defensive Player of the Year candidate in Ben Simmons, a resurgent Tobias Harris, and a stellar supporting cast. However, flashback a few years, and the Sixers were in a totally different space. After getting bounced in the first round of the 2013 playoffs, Philadelphia and then GM Sam Hinkie embarked on one of the most ambitious projects in the history of the league. Not satisfied with simply being mediocre, the Sixers began to intentionally tank in order to get high draft picks that could overhaul the direction of the franchise. This bold and unconventional strategy was nicknamed the process, and it would take several years for the process to finally come into full fruition. The tanking worked as Philly had the worst record in the NBA from 2013 to 2017, including a putrid 10-72 record in 2016. However, they used 2 top 3 picks during the span to help rebuild their team from ground zero. In 2014, the Sixers drafted Embiid 3rd overall, and in 2017 they took Simmons with the 1st overall pick. Embiid missed the first 2 years of his NBA career due to injury, and during this time he embraced the moniker "Trust the Process" as his own. Joel is the last remaining vestige of these forlorn times for the Sixers. He knew that one day the process would be complete, and this year it may actually happen. As I previously mentioned, Philadelphia has the defense to do it, and the overall team. And it's not only Simmons and Embiid that are carrying the defensive end of the floor. Second-year guard Matisse Thybulle has proven to be an absolute menace defensively. He is a ball hawk that can completely shut down his opponent the moment he enters the game, whether by stealing or blocking the ball. If Joel can stay healthy for 4 rounds, and Simmons can provide just enough help on the offensive end, then the process, and all the losing that came from it, can be justified when Embiid holds a Larry O'Brien trophy. Will a play-in team make it to the second round and beyond? As you all know, this is the first year of the play-in tournament, and I have to say, after watching all 4 play-in games, I absolutely loved it. It provided immediate high-intensity stakes that wouldn't have been felt until at least a week into the playoffs. It's an achievement for a team just to make it into the playoffs, but it's another for a team to upset their opponent in the first round. The question is if that's even possible for any of these play-in teams. In the East, the 8-seed Wizards will face the top seed Sixers, and the 7-seed Celtics will face the 2-seed Nets. Then, out west, the 8-seed Grizzlies will match up against the Jazz, and the 7-seed Lakers will face off against the Suns. So can any of these 4 teams really shock the world and pull off the first round upset? If I had to put my money on a play-in team winning their matchup, it would either be the Lakers or the Wizards. Obviously the Lakers are the clear choice, being the reigning champs, but I have a weird feeling about Washington pulling some shenanigans. I know the Wizards might seem like a huge stretch after me just waxing poetic on the Sixers, but the first round might be the perfect time to catch the top seed in the NBA off guard. The Wizards have two superstar level players in Russell Westbrook and Bradley Beal, who will both feel like they belong on the big stage. They won't be intimidated by the Sixers and will surely give them their best effort for how many games the series goes on. I actually think it's impossible for a Westbrook-led team not to play their hardest for 48 minutes. So for me, in this series, Beal is a wild card. Although he's slightly dinged up, if he can explode for 35 plus points per game in the series, the Wizards may just well shock the NBA world. It'll be tough for any play-in team to make it past the first round without home court advantage, but it's an intriguing storyline to follow nonetheless. Is this Chris Paul's last chance to make the finals? Finally, we have one of the saddest career storylines that will surely be on a lot of people's minds this postseason. That is the fact that Chris Paul, one of the best point guards of all time, has never made it to the NBA Finals. But this is in no way Chris Paul's fault. The Suns had one of the best single season turnarounds, in large part due to the Chris Paul effect. Since coming into the league in 2005, every single team that Paul has gone to has seen a drastic improvement in their record. First, Chris Paul was drafted to the lowly Hornets and instantly turned them into a bona fide playoff team. He was then traded to the lowly Clippers and turned them into championship contenders, but just couldn't win it all due to injuries every year. Then in 2017, Paul was traded to the Rockets, who went from a middling playoff team straight to a championship contender. Then, after being traded for Russell Westbrook in 2019, Paul pulled his best Houdini act when he got the OKC Thunder, who were given a 0.2% chance to make the playoffs, and got them into the playoffs. Lastly, CP3 was again traded, this time to the Suns, who he helped turn from a sub-500 team to 30 games over and a championship contender. Just simply incredible. Yet despite basically putting the entire team on his back literally everywhere he goes, CP3 has never made it to the finals. The closest he got was in 2018, when the Rockets led the unbeatable Warriors 3-2 in the conference finals before Paul tore his hamstring. Many thought that this might be his last chance to make it, as he would never be on a team as talented as Houston was. However, Paul has proven everyone wrong yet again, as he's shined as an MVP candidate on Phoenix and has the Suns as a 2 seed. For the first time since Houston, Chris has a stud scoring threat in Devin Booker that can make all the big shots that Paul can. So now, all Paul has to do is run the show the way that he does, which is almost always at his own pace, and then take over in the fourth as usual. This might just be his last chance to make the finals, in what's been an extraordinary career regardless. If CP3 can make it this year, he can catapult himself up the all-time point guard list, right behind the likes of Magic Johnson and Isaiah Thomas. So those were 7 of the most intriguing storylines to look out for in the 2021 NBA playoffs. Let me know if I miss any good ones down in the comments, and make sure to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and this has been Sports Gab.